Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright, so as we spoke about yesterday, the topic of voter ID once again hits the forefront. Why is that, you may ask? Well, it's because Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson is planning on introducing legislation that would require proof of citizenship before casting a ballot.
The thing we need to do, and this is what the House Republicans are about to enter legislation into the record that will ensure that no illegal can vote in a federal election. You have to prove you're a citizen instead of, as the law currently states, just checking a box to say it. Maria, we have so many illegals in the country. They could tilt the election if this happened. If just 1 in 100 illegals decided to vote in a federal election, it could swing congressional races, and it might even swing presidential election. You could talk about hundreds of thousands of votes potentially. So we have to do everything possible to make sure that this election is secure. It's a #1 priority of the American people.
Mr. Speaker, thanks very much.
I know, crazy stuff. This is probably what leftoids are referring to when they mention systemic racism. Completely freaking idiotic. But anyways, left-wing lunacy aside, essentially what Speaker Mike Johnson just said was, we're going to pass legislation that essentially mandates the rule of law. 18 U.S. Code 611, voting by aliens. It shall be unlawful for any alien to vote in any election held solely or in part for the purpose of electing a candidate for the office of president, vice president, presidential elector, member of the Senate, member of the House of Representatives, delegate from the District of Columbia, or resident commissioner. The law is already on the books. Essentially what Mike Johnson is saying is that that law ought to be enforced. I know how unfathomably extreme the left is losing their minds and making the same old tired argument that enforcing ID or citizenship verification within the voting process is somehow racist, that it somehow disproportionately negatively affects black voters. Essentially what they're saying is that black people can't get IDs, or don't know how to get IDs, or don't know how to present their identification in order to participate in the process. Now that of course is demeaning, condescending, and insulting on its own, but it's also a completely fabricated non-issue. And there's an interesting clip that's bouncing around Twitter, gaining millions of views already. Or rather X, I really gotta train myself to say X instead of Twitter. Let's just say this little 1-minute video clip just completely demolished this bogus left-wing narrative. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so we've been hearing it everywhere, obviously. Voter ID is racist.
Republican effort to make it harder to vote because they know that some of those requirements, having to show a license, they disproportionately impact communities of color. And
so the fact that the voter ID law was put into place to diminish the political power of Latinos with racist intent.
Voter ID laws can be racist.
Okay, that's
other
two.
context.
Mr. Science?
There are some voter ID laws that are racially discriminatory in intent.
Do you have an opinion on voter ID laws?
Yeah, they're usually pretty racist.
I think voter ID laws are a way to perpetuate racism.
Would you go as far as say those laws are racist?
For sure.
Do you think it suppresses the African American vote?
Definitely. Because they're less likely to have state IDs. These type of people don't live in areas with easy access to DMVs or other places where they can get identification.
We've heard it a million times before from all of these leftoids that supposedly expecting black people or minority people to show up with their IDs in order to vote is, quote, voter suppression. It's an interesting claim, but obviously it's a BS claim because apparently in majority black Atlanta, citizens there have absolutely no issue showing up at an IRS center after receiving a letter stating that they had to verify their identity in person to receive their refund. In other words, if they wanted to get their tax refund, they had to show up with a government ID.
This is the line. Of course, it's going to be some foolishness. This is the line for everybody that need to verify their taxes. And then it's around the corner. If you can see over there, it's around the corner. They trying to tell people to go home. They finna have some problems. These people been standing in line. They cussing, they fussing. They got that poor security over there trying to handle this crowd. I don't know, this don't look like it's gonna turn out good. It don't look good at all. It don't look good at all. These people, they is finna try to tell these people that been standing here. I'm finna walk around the corner so I can show y'all. They finna try to tell these people that been standing here since 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. They finna try to tell these people that they gotta go home. So it's finna be some shit. They got their chair. It's coming all the way. I'm going all the way around the corner to show you. More people in line. Oh, they finna be cussing. Oh, he throwing up his hood. Okay. Go all the way around the corner. They finna piss y'all off in the front. Because they trying to tell people. And it's down. It's all the way. You can't even see the end.
Don't you find that interesting? So there it is. I guess everyone, including minority folk, in fact do have the ability to produce an ID, a driver's license, for certain, let's call it civic responsibilities after all. When it comes to collecting a refund, well, it seems as though people will be there in a jiffy, ready to present their IDs and all.
Turned away after waiting hours for tax help. There was a line in front of Atlanta's Tax Assistance Center today as they held extended hours ahead of Monday's tax deadline.
And our Atlanta News First reporter, Brittany Ford, spoke with people in that line who blame this all on a lack of organization.
This was the line in front of the IRS Tax Assistance Center Saturday. People wrapped in blankets in lawn chairs as early as 6 a.m. ahead of the 9 a.m. opening.
The line is around 2 corners, 3 corners. This one, 4 corners. It's 4 corners long.
The IRS held the extended hours Saturday ahead of Monday's tax deadline. No appointment needed. People were able to get one-on-one help from an IRS representative. But Atlanta News First learned many of them didn't come by choice.
All I need to do is verify my identity, and that's it. It's a tiny process, but still in all, to wait this long.
Almost everyone we spoke to had already filed their taxes, but received an email or letter in the mail similar to this, stating they needed to come in person to verify their identity before their refund could be released.
And I really want to stick on one specific quote there. This part right over here.
All I need to do is verify my identity, and that's it. It's a tiny process, but still in all.
There you heard it. Apparently identifying yourself, presenting your ID, is a simple process. But wait, I thought it was a very complex, arduous, racist expectation. Obviously not. There's nothing stopping anybody from voting, just like there's nothing stopping any citizen from engaging in whatever personal responsibilities they need to in order to collect a tax refund. It's basically that simple. And obviously, people have the ability to show up en masse when they feel it's necessary. This idea that elections need to be made less secure because particular groups of people aren't engaging in the civic process as much as others is completely ludicrous. You want to increase black voter turnout, you don't do it by actually endangering American democracy. You do it by creating incentive and enthusiasm. You get people to the polls the proper way. The simple fact is, if people aren't showing up to vote, it's because they don't care to vote. It's not because of systemic racism suppressing their voices in the democratic process. It's very simply because they just don't want to. They just don't care enough. They're not paying attention to what's going on in politics, what's good or bad policy. And so they'd rather just not participate. The Democrat view is that they're not getting all the votes that they require because of suppression, but it's not suppression. Maybe your messaging just sucks. You know, in 2012 and of course in 2008, the story was how people of color helped Obama win. Not only win his initial election, but also re-election. Democrats managed an increase in voter turnout, specifically with minority voters. And so maybe rhetoric's the issue. Maybe this.
But if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Maybe that's the problem and not voter ID being racist. But no, of course not. The problem is the expectation of ID requirements. This is America, for Pete's sakes.
My question is, so we're going to show proof to Miss Susie at the polling place? How is Miss Susie going to verify? Are we asking people to bring their papers? This is America.
How could you possibly expect people to have to show their IDs? This is white supremacist, systemic racism in action. Give me a frickin' break. Democrats don't care about voter suppression. Voter suppression's a myth that doesn't even exist. All they're focused on is manufacturing outcome. In other words, they want illegals to vote. I hope Republicans introduce a bill to the floor that's extremely thin, a very targeted one-issue bill that essentially enforces ID verification in the voting process in federal elections. You know, enforcing the laws that are already on the books. A bill where House representatives are voting on one issue and one issue alone. Should voter ID be required, almost like a poll? And let's see who votes yes and who votes no. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.